Hi. So this is a practice session. I got my kids as sample people, people coming for the session. Hopefully this will work. I'm going to use Nearpod, and it looks something like this. Essentially, it's just um, it's it's literally a PowerPoint. One of the things as part of the session, I'm actually going to talk a little bit about that. So let me just get started. Um, this will be on the screen. NetBrec. I don't know if it's a good name or not, but that's what I'm going with for the name of it. Essentially, I want to invite them, my placement students, invite them for a breakfast, and hopefully do some really good networking work at that session. So I'm going to skip to the first slide, partly because we talked about technology for the first module, and partly because this is a great tool. There's a code up here for you can enter, and my kids around the room have all done that. They're all just chilling while I go through this. The code you enter is on the sheet that I would provide, but it's also on the screen if people want to follow that way. If you have old PowerPoints and you want to transfer them to Nearpod, for the sake of getting the games and activities that you can add into slides, you first should actually switch it into Google Slides. And then there's actually a little button. It looks like this, Nearpod Eyes. All you do is click Nearpod Eyes, and it actually literally turns it into a Nearpod for you. And it's very slick. And then you can add activities and then insert them as you go. So what do I mean by activity? So what you can see right now is on my kids' screens, there's a full screen picture on their cell phone or device. There's a full screen picture of this bridge over a river with the sunset or the clouds and whatnot going off into the sunset. And so what I would say to them is, where do you think all the action is happening in this picture? And so you can just circle it on the picture. You guys have devices that have touchscreen. You can just draw pictures on your screen. And as you start drawing pictures on your screen, on the projector screen in the main classroom, you're going to see you're actually going to see the all of the students, anybody who's contributing, you'll see their own little drawing appear. And I'll flick back to that. Hopefully, are you guys drawing? No. Please draw. Draw what? Where do you think all the action is happening in that picture? Yeah. Okay. So the idea here again is I would have the placement supervisors coming in, mostly again just to meet each other. But I would start off by saying, like, we're going to go through some activities. It's a little different than using PowerPoint. You're actually welcome to engage with it, and that's awesome. They're drawing right now. Lucy's not drawing. You're not drawing, my love? Oh, that's good. That's amazing. So who's Lucy Lou? Oh, yours. Okay, it's coming up. Did you say submit? Click on submit. Anyway, you can see that they've had a little fun drawing on this, and chances are most people will do something like that. But again, the idea that I want to get across is really well shown in this picture. Oh, there we go. Yeah, she circled this. So you can really see that everybody's kind of on the same page. You could literally have a blank screen. I just choose to use pictures to make it a little more engaging. Also, because when I move on, thank you. So I'm going to move on. Also, when I move on, I can refer back to that image because we've engaged with it now. It's in some way. Sometimes when I'm offering that as an option to my students in like a geography class or whatever, I might put a map up and then have them circle it on their phone where we're talking about, or things like that, or what stands out on the diagram. The next slide, and I would definitely go this route, is just an intro of excuse me, who else is in the room, and I would say something to the effect of, so this is Tammy in the top corner. She's our GTTI and trades and tech person. She has arranged some transportation for us and provides a lot of the training for other aspects like Smart Serve and those kinds of things, the chainsaw course, etc. The middle gentleman is the Scott Davidson. He's our current MP. In the other corner, Carolyn Mulroney. All these people are eager to take part in these kinds of activities. In the bottom corner, there's my little sister. She's business minded. She wrote a couple of books about something called Give Back Economy, the idea of being socially conscious when you're marketing yourself, and using being a good community member as a really good tool for selling yourself. And then Kevin Cochran also, he's talked to our kids once already this year, but he's eager to take part in this kind of thing. He's also written a few books, but he really pushes financial literacy and comes in as an investor and someone who has a lot of ideas about how to capitalize on this. But I think it's really important to point out that the most important people in the room are the local people who have taken on community-based education students. And that, for sure, I mean, while there would be quite a few other folks in the room, I actually looked for a couple pictures of the other co-op departments in Georgina, in Keswick, and in the Catholic school as well, who I would definitely be inviting to this session, and probably try to include their co-op placement supervisors in subsequent years. Also, the ALEP programs, they fall really nicely into this in terms of CBE. And actually, the room that I'll be doing this in is the room for our ALEPS program. It's a bit bigger room and right next to our co-op office. So moving along, here's what's really happening. And this takes me back to when I was a bit younger and didn't really understand how networking really worked, and where I would see this, and again, if I switch into the presenter mode a little bit, this is a locker room, a picture of a locker room. You have two pictures of networking. Locker room or teams and sports and bands and that kind of thing, you build really genuine connections. And I remember going, for example, I played hockey with the teachers were one team, and we played every Friday morning for 15 years. And the other team was mostly town guys. And it was interesting because neither of us really had any trades or things that we were just friends and we hung out, but there were no trades guys. And what started happening is slowly the teachers team dwindled. Quite a few teachers, when they retired, new teachers that came weren't playing. So our team got smaller. And we started pulling in guys who did, for example, we picked up a parent who did cable work for Bell or Rogers. I don't remember. And because, we're all hanging out in the change room, you would hear guys say, oh, we should make this arrangement, or you should come in and help me out with this problem, etc. And that really foundational networking is incredible, and as a presenter, I would say, like, that's the essence of networking, the idea that because there's a genuine connection, a genuine friendship, you feel much more comfortable asking for help with certain problems or issues. So it was just interesting because, I played thousands of team sports just as an example. And I always felt like as a teacher, I didn't have as much to offer. I mean, I definitely get asked questions about what should I do in this case, or how should I deal with this teacher that's doing whatever. But it doesn't really equal out. Like a guy who's, providing plumbing for somebody else, and somebody else who's got, construction background, they can work together and produce something. Whereas I, as a teacher, I always felt like we didn't really have we didn't have the same easily commodified payback in that networking scenario. The second picture, the other side of that equation, this photo, I love it. When I typed in networking and I was looking for photos for this presentation to share with you, the first image or second image that came up was this one. I was like, oh, this is so phony. This is so not genuine. But you can tell that even though it's a very staged picture, everybody's there with purpose. And unfortunately, most networking scenarios, the idea is to cultivate interest among investors and make business that way. Now, I'm going to skip to the next slide, and I wonder, there's clearly purpose, and there's clearly a genuine authenticity. And the next slide is a question, and I'm wondering if you think, which aspect of networking do you think is more important? The social, genuine authenticity, or the purpose? Okay, and so my kids are now answering the quiz. You're not answering it? Are you already doing something else? Oh, snap. Okay. Oh, yes. Wait. Somebody figured it out. Leo, you figured it out. It's both, right? And ultimately...
So I just tapped on both of them, and I was like, what?
All right. So ultimately, as you go through this kind of activity, it's pretty clear that to have really quality networking, you need the genuine connections and you need a practical purpose. You need both of these aspects to make it function. So as I move along, which of these things do you think made me realize how important this is? So there's three answers here, and this is more of a poll. It's not a quiz in the same sense, but it still shows up like a poll. But I saw a student on their phone, and when I asked them, "Hey, what are you doing on your phone?" they said, "I'm texting a friend." What we're talking about in class, they talked about in the CAF, and they would be stoked to hear about that. Or I played in our annual staff versus student hockey game, and the students communicated really well. Or do you think it was looking on Facebooking and realizing that my students have more friends than me? Which of those things do you think maybe caused me to realize my students actually have a lot to offer? And so watching my kids, go through this one again, it's a trick question. Oh, you hate me. Yeah, it's a trick question also. You can see that they're answering. Everybody thought it was B. Nice. Annual hockey game. Interesting. In fact, the answer is all three. In fact, I know you can't. Okay, you guys are getting upset with me. I see. Anyway, the idea here is, well, first of all, you probably have figured out that when I give a quiz or something like this, even when I'm talking to placement supervisors or whoever, a lot of times there is a trick question afoot. In this case, how this works, how this networking thing works for what we're doing here today is we're looking at what students actually have to provide as students to the larger community. And one of the things that we really, I think we overlook, and I think is super important, is this concept here of a genuine connection. When you're at school, your friends, the people you're texting, the people around you, the people that you share with, there's a real connection. Students are jammed into this hyper social situation that most people never really face. And I think even us as teachers, we don't see it in the same way. We're not forced to be social the same way they are. And maybe it's that I know it feels sometimes forced, but there is some pressure to be social. The idea here is that's the genuine connection. And around that school atmosphere where you have that collegial discussion about, whether it's just a text message to a friend, you have these students who will literally say to their friend, "Oh, my co-op, yeah, it's pretty good, but I think we should, we have all this extra wood lying around. I'm not sure what we can do with it." And then you'll hear literally someone at another placement will be like, "Ah, that's weird. We need wood. Oh, we should make that connection happen." And this is where it happens, right? So you have local business running through that school situation. And because this person would never normally talk to this person, these two people live in a silo, live in a vacuum almost. They're still definitely, engaged in business and seeing those aspects, but there are so many other layers that, like, we do have a lot of students working for local government. We do have some people working indirectly for provincial government, but their awareness, their support, it's not a bad thing to have interest and investment potential, even to the point of we've had new students or new placements come about because students' parents realize it's a pretty good thing to do. The other thing that we're seeing is a lot of times students see from not their own placement necessarily, but from the conjunction and alignment of other placements, they see maybe that's an opportunity for them in the future, especially pathways. Ultimately, it's this network through the school, through the students, genuine, real friendships, that we get all these new opportunities. So moving along, I don't think anybody is, everybody who's here is pretty aware that there is a lot of benefit from being a co-op provider, a person who provides a placement for students to work at. These are the three pieces that I really want to focus on, though. It's the authentic learning, and I know there really are a lot of other benefits of co-op, but these are the three that I think mean the most for what we're trying to do today. The authentic learning, everything is so much more genuine. You as placement supervisors do not give them work for the sake of work, or at least I mean, for the most part, I don't see that happening. No big deal. And so that, I think that's vital. I think that's really important for this process going forward. That the authentic learning, that there is a genuineness to what they're learning, but also every part of this experience, especially talking to a friend about what goes on at their co-op, so important. It allows for this networking to happen. The second one, and I think this might partly be because my sister's the stuff that she's been working on, creating social innovation challenges, working with the United Church and other churches to establish community hubs where businesses can get together and work in cheaper facilities and work together seems like a good thing for everybody. And so I think the layer of that that's important is being seen as a good business, a business that in the community, when people look around and they go, I'm going to buy a hamburger. Am I going to buy the hamburger? They both taste the same. Everything's the same, cost the same. Everything's the same. But this place hires and takes in co-op students, and this one doesn't. Which place would you buy the burger? Now, some people might say, "Oh, I don't want to go where a co-op student is working." That I should hope that's not the case, but that's always possible. But I think really, much more realistically, you're going to have a situation where the person says, "Oh, I want to help that person out because they're doing the right thing. That's a good person," and that's the essence. That's the cornerstone of social marketing. The next piece is to encourage students to recognize that their social network at school can help greater community success. And that's the cornerstone of what I'm trying to do here today. And really going forward, this is one of the biggest components. I should say, before I get too far into this though, when I started working on this at the beginning of the semester before Mr. Appleby, Ted, as you guys all know him, before he retired, I was looking into how to get this going. And because we didn't start the semester off with this, there were a few students who were like, you told us what was going to be in the course, and now you're changing that. It's not really fair. And I definitely had a few students balk at that. But overwhelmingly, I've had a lot more students say, this makes sense and I want to try it. So clearly there's some grassroots interest. So moving forward, I still need to, and I think it's important for me to address challenges. For those of you who know me only a little bit, I did teach English for a few years. And when I teach essay writing, one of the biggest things I really I think is important to teach students is something called prolepsis, recognizing what people are concerned about before, if you're trying to market or persuade, actually, when you're thinking essay style, when you're trying to persuade someone, knowing where they're coming from is so important. And so that concept of prolepsis, again, that's what you're seeing here. So what I'm doing is I want to appreciate that there are some things that you worry about, and there are some challenges for sure from my standpoint as well. Number one is risk management. There are a lot of layers to this. There are so many elements that I should be addressing here. So number one, the OSBIE and WSIB insurance that covers our students, their main issue is just being aware of and mitigating possibility for injury. Everything they do, everything that they expect from us as placement supervisors and teachers is the idea of making students aware of problems and reporting so that it's not it's not something that gets worse over time or something like that. So there's a lot of layers and components to this. The other issue that I think I addressed as a challenge was that for many of you who have taken co-op students in the past, one of the biggest issues, I guess, is the idea that you do compare one co-op student to another, and that when you get a really, really hardworking, focused, and amazing co-op student, and then the next one comes in and doesn't quite match up, there is definitely some questioning from the placement supervisors. And I hope of all the issues that I can't just magically solve, those two are risk management, which we're always trying to improve and make people more aware and make the commitment to student safety. And the other one is the issue of, we do compare students to each other, and while that's really not it's not fair, I guess that it's also not really in my hands. Okay, moving on. The next big layer here is responsibilities, and I've gone over with you as placement supervisors loads, sharing the package that went home with you, all of the stuff that you are responsible for. So the one thing that I quite often don't do, and I think is probably something I should do, is share with you my responsibilities. And the reason I don't do that is I don't want to bore you like I'm probably doing right now, but also because I feel like in some ways that's on my shoulders. However, I think if you understand what I'm about and what I'm here for, I think that helps you really get where I'm coming from. So this list is not comprehensive. There are definitely other things that I've been responsible for, but there is one thing on this list that technically, I guess, we don't do. And I'm going to flip to the next screen. And yeah, so on my students' screen, it's going to have that big on the placement supervisor screen. It's going to have this big screen here, and then you can see that they have the potential. They're all having dinner right now, but they have the potential of crossing off on this picture which one of these things they think I don't actually do. So just so we can see it a little more clearly, I'm going to skip back to the original page and go through some of them just to be clear about what things we do and what things we don't. So find placements. Actually, that's the one that I would say is not necessarily mandatory. We really, really do encourage students in our program to do some searching themselves, and we do help, of course. We definitely have a list of places that are looking for students, and we do try to make that match. But strictly speaking, we do encourage students as part of their co-op experience to go out and make that first connection and make some of those early phone calls. But at the same time, we do that. We have done that as well. Probably some of you are looking at me. Okay. So the next one is ensure transportation for student is safe and timely. That's a tough one. The transportation in our area, as you probably know, right now it's dial-a-ride. It's not perfect. A lot of students are using, parents, grandparents, not friends. No one's using friends. Some people do have their own cars, though. Thankfully, it does make their experience a little bit easier. Complete scalp. So quite a few of you have actually walked through it very carefully with. Some of you, it was more cursory, but the idea with scalp is it is the best way for us to really monitor what they're doing at their placement and be able to assess that there is work being done that applies and fits to and links to, the course that we have linked the co-op to. And the other thing that's in the scalp and is pretty relevant is learning skills. And one of the things that I notice, and hopefully you notice as well, is learning skills, whether it's in a classroom or out in co-op. Those things make for success or break success. and really that step in the scalp. I feel like as a parent, when my students get my own children get to that age, I will be more concerned or careful to check that kind of data than even the mark in some cases. So meet with placement supervisors. That's certainly something that takes up a good chunk of my week. Uh, there's some real balancing there. We don't want to be in your face too much, but we definitely need to meet with you once every 2 weeks on the outside. So the other one here is ensuring WIA and insurance coverage is in place and accurate. There is a ton of paperwork that we need to make sure is spot on, especially in terms of hours worked. Some of the things, we look at the number of hours getting to and from the workplace. Is that transportation time part of their work time? Well, technically it's not. And also we are not covered for that transportation time. So there are always questions around that, but that is a simple fact that technically that is not covered. Provide an initial safety training and ensure job specific training has been followed and that it's ongoing, that there is if for example we have students who are in a old age facility or a palliative care facility, that there is ongoing compassion fatigue training and things like that our students are involved in. Arrange meetings between placement supervisors. I feel like most people circle that one as something that is not technically my job, and that's true. It's not something we, strictly speaking, have to do, but I think going forward, for the sake of collaboration, for the sake of future forward thinking, that's going to be a really big layer in what we do. Help students choose pathways. This is more of a guidance thing, but again, many of the days I spend is helping students with staying on top of other courses, organization, filling in scholarship applications, just being a teacher and being there for my students so they respect what we do, as well as providing support for students who are in trades. There's a large component of our daily thought process, I guess, to making sure OYAP is functioning for our students, and the very few, unfortunately, that do take advantage of it are following through on that. Maintain connections with community. That kind of links nicely with this one, but again, I threw that in here because it's not just placement supervisors. There's so many other layers to this. Keeping Roots, for example, that was providing transportation for us, keeping them in the loop and getting Roots back on as an approved provider for transportation makes a big difference. They are also providing funding to GTTI to get a more updated bus, so we could literally have a bus doing a drop-off loop to get people to co-op safely and timely. Make adjustments in situations where needed. Ooh, that's an interesting one. And the subject of the next couple of slides. And provide opportunities for students to reflect on what they are learning. That's linked with assessment. That's linked with the scalp. And I think really vital. Moving on. Oh, yeah, I did this one. Oh, look, they answered. I guess the biggest thing that I think before we get to the networking stuff with the students coming in, biggest thing is if there are concerns that you have, if there's things you're wondering about, I definitely have recourse. One of them is the scalp amendment form. That is, if we have to change the hours, we've done it quite often, where we recognize that the student needs to be at the placement for longer. Partly usually because the relationship is a good one, and the supervisor would like to get more learning happening. But again, that the timing can be changed, slightly adjusted, anyways, to provide longer hours, etc. The transportation support, quite often that's something that placement supervisors are worried about, which I definitely get. It's something that I do worry about, making sure that everybody's getting to and from work safely. Finally, incident report forms. So again, I tried to think in advance what people would be worried about, and so if I was taking on a co-op student, I think that's what I would be most concerned about. Just the fact that I don't want to see somebody who's maybe not as well trained get hurt at my workplace because of that. So there's a lot to break down there. The most important thing, I think, is just knowing which the protocols for incident reporting. That's in the package that we looked at, but sometimes people think, oh, yeah, a paper cut, no big deal, or those kinds of things. That's still something worth filling the forms out for. It's documentation. It doesn't reflect negatively on you, on me, or even on the student. It's just safety precaution and necessary. Frankly, it is a form to fill out, but it helps everybody in the long run. So that's the end of slides. Oh no, it's not. Yeah, this is probably the most important one. So at the end here, this is a collaborative board, and it gives me the opportunity at the very end here to say, what do you need better? What do you need more of? And this is kind of the wrap up for the collaboration. Your students that you work with have been out in another room. They've been hanging out with each other, sharing ideas, talking about networking opportunities. They're going to come into the room in about a minute, and you're going to upload to this last collaboration sheet. What are you looking for? What connections can you make? Your student is going to introduce you to 2 or 3, maybe 4 even, of the other folks that are here, and hopefully give you some ideas for business opportunities, or marketing opportunities, ways to streamline what you're doing. So, these are some pending posts. Yes. There's Lucy. There we go. All right, time to eat, I guess. Thanks for listening, and now we would definitely be moving to that activity of just networking, and I'm gonna roam around the room as well. There's a lot of there's a lot going on. So I'm going to send this out. If there's anything that I need to update or add to it, I'm very happy to do that. The activity itself, I think I'm going to try to start small, make sure it works, and as opposed to throwing around swag and throwing around stuff like that. Hopefully use the students' social connections and leverage that going forward. Okay, take care.